What did we learn from the debacle of a loss that the Aggies took to the Gators on Saturday? We're going to talk about that and plenty more on this episode of the Locked On Aggies podcast.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Locked On Aggies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Joey Ickes. Thanks so much for making Locked On Aggies your first listen. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, so please go check us out there at Locked On Aggies on YouTube. I am joined today by my good buddy and my colleague at AggiesWire.usatoday.com, Cameron Ohnysty. Today's episode is brought to you by Sling TV. Don't miss this week's matchup between the Aggies and the Auburn Tigers right here on Sling. Sling, the TV you love for a price you'll love. Try it today. Cameron, today we're going to continue our weekly tradition. We are Aggies after all. We believe in tradition. We're going to continue our weekly tradition of working our way through your weekly article of 5 things we learned from our most recent matchup. This time, the Aggies 41-24 loss to the Florida Gators. And the story of the game, outside of the injuries and the flu bug and all that, is the Aggies defense is in a spiral right now. And yes, there's a lot to go around in terms of blame, but we got to make sure some of this falls on the coaches too, right?
Yeah, and I think, I don't think we always want to go that route immediately. I know fans do. It's like a fan tradition to just want to fire the coach after one bad game. I mean, it's always entertaining to do. But it's been building up now, the last, I would honestly say since South Carolina, I think you probably agree on that we're starting to see just negative play after negative play defensively, where they will have a couple plays here and there, especially, and I'll actually use Florida as an example, is that McKinley Jackson, who had another good game. I think he had two and a half tackles for loss in that game, and you could see it on film right away. He's making an impact in the run game. And that was in the first couple plays, first possession I think Florida had after they kicked the field goal, but they kept him from scoring a touchdown at least. And that was because the run defense was doing their job enough. And I think when I was watching that game, I was surprised when we got the news with with the injuries and the flu and the guys sitting out because of the flu. But I thought, okay, maybe they learned. Maybe they learned from the worst showing they've had in years last week to just be gap integrity defense. Pay attention to your gap. Don't let guys get by you. If it's going to be a zone run or something, or an end around or something that is the linebacker's job to get at them and they mess up, it's not the D-line's fault 100%. But again, this was just a performance that was very similar against Ole Miss, where they were running through both A gaps. They were running through every freaking gap there is on the offensive line, it seemed like, and just having their way. And especially Anthony Richardson, the quarterback, we all know, dual threat guy, is one of the fastest in the game. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see him when he gets to the NFL, how he kind of develops. But we knew he was going to be a problem on the ground. And Ole Miss, for example, has a quarterback who, yes, he is technically a dual threat, but he is not as fast, he's not as athletic as Anthony Richardson. And he had 95 yards on pure scrambles against his defense. And we can blame youth and guys missing. We had talked about last week Antonio Johnson being out. That hurt them a lot. Well, Antonio Johnson was out for this game as well, but I'm not going to put it all on Antonio Johnson being out. And I will put it on Bryce Anderson being out. That didn't help either. I mean, the fact that you take away speed and tackling abilities, we know he's the best tackling safety in the seams of college football right now, and you take both those guys out of this game, you're losing 2 very valuable defensive players, especially against the run. And so, I mean, but guys need to step up. And a lot of the young guys have said that this week that Devon Achane was talking on Monday, I believe, And he had made that point that, look, a lot of guys are out, but guys need to step up. And that's football. Okay. That's why we recruit. That's why we have young players. And look, guys like Jacoby Matthews, for example, I'm naming a lot of safeties and defensive backs here, but they were doing a lot of the dirty work because the D-line just couldn't hold up and they just couldn't do their job. And look, I know attrition sets in. I know these young guys have played a lot of snaps and they're still learning. Guys like Walter Nolan, for example, is doing his best. He's going to learn. He's so talented. He's going to be a beast against the run by next year and beyond. So I'm not worried about that. But when the only guy you have out there is, like I said, McKinley Jackson doing his job, he can't do everything. He can't stop every rush. And again, it's just very disappointing. And you're 100% right. This is when we start putting it on the coaching staff and DJ Durkin, because DJ Durkin was taken from Ole Miss because of what he did there. Okay, especially the defenses. He had a lot of kind of diverse schemes, and he had a lot of great games against SEC opponents that A&M is going to face every year. So of course, Jimbo, I don't blame him for hiring him. I mean, the guy has a good track record as a coordinator, but it is not showing up, and you can't just blame all the things I kind of just blamed. We're prognosticators. We see it and we analyze it. But as a coach, it's a different mindset, right? And so I don't know what he's thinking right now. I don't know if he's blaming himself or blaming everything else, but he's on the chopping block right now with 3 games left, because you and I know that with Auburn coming up this weekend, and then you got a gimme game essentially against UMass, but I want to call it a gimme game right now with how A&M is playing. And then you close the season against LSU. You better play drastically better defense. It has to be drastic. And I'm not talking about, we're not going to just stop giving up 100 to 200 plus yards rushing. You got to lower that number significantly to have any respect, especially from the fan base. And honestly, right now, I don't know what's going to happen with Durkin. I don't know what's going to happen with any coach, right? We're just kind of looking and seeing how it goes, but it's bad right now, and it's gonna fall on him in the end.
Yeah, I think the word you used is that I think is appropriate is attrition. Like, this season overall has just turned into a war of attrition for the Aggies. And, we went into this season thinking about and talking about how, they were pretty deep, and they were able to sustain some of these injuries, but it has just turned into, just this past week, and the broadcast did a really good job of showing this. They had 6 guys out due to the flu bug that went through the facility. They had 6 guys out due to other injuries, not season-ending injuries, but regular injuries. And then 5 guys out due to season-ending injuries. And when you think about the fact that, you're going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 guys in a program, plus or minus, some depending, and you got suspensions and stuff, all that kind of stuff going on too. You add suspensions to that group. You got 20 guys out for this game.
Yep.
That's 20% or so of your program. And if they're guys who are out hurt, they're going to be guys who are playing a lot, because the guys who are playing a lot are the ones who are most likely to get injured. So you talk about missing Antonio Johnson. You talk about missing Bryce Anderson. You talk about missing the guys that they're missing on the defensive line. And the linebackers have had no consistency, because there's been guys in and out with Andre White's missed with injury, Adrian Cooper's missed with injury, all that kind of stuff. You get into these situations and you run into a team like Florida. One of the things Billy Napier did a great job of is using motion and misdirection to confuse the second level players of the A&M defense. And that's something I talk about all the time from an offensive perspective of how important that is, because manipulating those guys is really the key to being able to prevent the defense from being able to stop you, and preventing the defense from being able to secure the line of scrimmage. And speaking of securing, if you've thought about securing your home with home security, but have been putting it off, you'll want to listen up right now. Locked On Aggies listeners can order the #1 rated Simply Safe home security system for 50% off. That's right, 50% off. This is their biggest offer of the year, and you won't want to miss it. Here's why we love it. Simply Safe is it's the key to feeling safe inside your home. Whether that's averting a break-in, depending on the effectiveness of the technology, or just feeling supported by the Simply Safe team. The Simply Safe technology is awesome because with the crystal clear HD cameras, you have the ability to live stream those mobile on your phone through the Simply Safe app. There's high-tech sensors that allow you to be able to monitor your entire home and you're not getting the types of notifications. They have the technology to keep you from getting the notifications because the wind blew some leaves past your window or the dog ran by your window. You're getting real notifications only if there's something going on. And Simply Safe has your back, whether it's the 24/7 monitoring team or a Simply Safe technical support. Simply Safe was voted Best Home Security System of 2022 by U.S. News and World Report for the third year in a row. Simply Safe technology is called the Fast Protect technology. It's exclusive to Simply Safe, and it captures critical evidence to verify the threat is real so you can get priority police response. It's whole home security with advanced monitors for every room. Professional monitoring costs less than $1 per day, less than half the price of ADT's traditional professionally installed system. With the top-rated Simply Safe app, stay in complete control of your system anytime, anywhere. Arm or disarm, unlock for a guest, access your cameras, adjust system settings. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system I'll recommend. Get 50% off the new Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com. This is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplysafe.com/lockedoncollege. There's no safe like Simply Safe. And Cameron, we talked about Simply Safe and the security blanket for this A&M team, and maybe the binky that everybody is clinging to in terms of how we can be safe and comfortable. Yeah. It falls on the shoulders of an 18-year-old kid, and that is, all of the hope for this A&M program right now rests on the shoulders of what Connor Weigman can do over the last 3 games. And that's one of your points in your article, that getting Connor Weigman back is the only chance A&M has of winning their 3 remaining games. Tell me more about how much, and this, it almost feels silly as grown men, right, to put this much thought and pressure and all that kind of stuff on an 18-year-old kid. But this is where we are, and this is how important he is, and this is where we are in the season. And it's bigger implications than even the last 3 games, and we've talked about that before. But talk to me about how important getting Connor Weigman back for these last 3 games is.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I've been told, that's a little dramatic. I was like, well, I'm not. It's dramatic because of what's going on. I mean, we have to look at how this season has gone, and when you look at, you pull up the schedule even, and it's just red marks all over the place, and that's when you get to this point. You're just like, okay, yes, 18 years old, freshman, supposed to be learning, supposed to be in that time where he's just transitioning, but after what we saw against Ole Miss, you and I both said last week, we're most excited about the Florida game because of Connor Weigman. We're most excited about a team that was 3-5 then to play another football game because of Connor Weigman. And it's because of the way he makes this offense go. And now I will say that we saw in the first half against Florida, a Haynes King, who is clearly injured, by the way, doing a decent job, moving the offense down the field. A lot of that was Devon Achane, was connecting with the receiving core, was connecting with, both of the best receivers we have right now, Moose Muhammad and Evan Stewart. And in the second half drop, it just disappeared. It was gone. It was basically eliminated to a point. It was almost like they just said, well, you got your scoring and you're done. And I'm sorry, but that's all you needed to see. And that second half kind of encapsulated A&M season as a whole, especially with Haynes King at quarterback, and just how this offense just changes immediately when Connor Weigman steps on the field. And I'm not saying that they would have won the game against Florida, but I am saying that they would have scored more than 24 points in that game, because the way that Jimbo kind of dictates around him and knows that he can go fast, he can play up tempo. He doesn't have to worry about Connor getting flustered in the pocket. Like we've talked about, he has this great relationship with Evan Stewart? Do they have this special connection going? They can kind of read off each other. They know what to do. He knows what to do. He reads through his progressions well. The biggest mistakes he had were kind of those freshman mistakes, in the pocket. He kind of tripped up a couple times. I guarantee in this game, we would have seen a more mature look, a guy who's feeling way more comfortable, and somebody who just started slinging it all over the field. And the fact is, if these last 3 games are any gauge of what this team is going to be next season in 2023, it all lies at Connor Weigman and his advancement with the offense, because these games matter for him and for this offensive line of how they're going to gel. We know that most of this offensive line is going to be back next season at this point. We know that they need time to play with this new quarterback. And obviously the most exciting part of it is guys like Devon Achane, who is unsure of his future right now. Obviously, Evan Stewart, I'm not worried about him leaving or anything right now. But I do want him to play more with Connor. I want Moose to play more with Connor. I want Donovan Green. I want guys like Jake Johnson, these young receivers and tight ends, to gel with this quarterback. This is our guy. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be blunt and mean here, but we don't need to see any more Haynes King. We know it. We know what it is. We've seen it 5 times now this season, and it's the same story over and over. We have to move on. We have to hope that he's healthy, and we heard good things. Obviously, Jimbo Fisher said he's feeling good. He was going to practice on Monday. I haven't heard anything else, or both of us haven't heard anything else. I think he should be cleared to go by Saturday. And, I mean, this is everything right now. This is what we have to look forward to for Texas A&M. This is what the fan base has to look forward to. I know it's not pretty, but at least it's something, and at least it prepares you for next season and beyond. Yeah,
absolutely. And we'll tie it back to our next point that we'll get through quickly, and that you touched on it a little bit. That is what Evan Stewart and Moose Muhammad have been able to do with the stretch of, 3 different quarterbacks in multiple different weeks, back and forth, no continuity, and these guys just continue to produce. Yeah. And it's awesome to see, and it's a great jumping off point for 2023. And it's one of those things that, like, a lot of people are worried right now about what 2023 looks like because of what happened in 2022. And I did a whole show Monday about how the stuff on the field is starting to show up on the recruiting trail. Anthony Hill decommits. Yeah. The heavy lean right now is he's going to wind up at Texas, which was the other school in his final 2. Yeah. Best of luck to Anthony. But that is a symptom of what has gone on the field. And that's really what these next few games are about, is can A&M put a product on the field for these last 3 games, make it to a bowl game, go out and put a performance on the field in a bowl game that will make kids and their families want to come be a part of A&M football. And can they make some hires on the coaching staff in the offseason between those 2 times that brings enough excitement to bring those guys back in, to keep guys in the fold and bring more guys back in the fold.
And I've got one little point I just want to intersect with, is that you can kind of gauge these guys' opinions and what they're thinking through social media. I'll give you an example of Donovan Green. Has been on Twitter. He's been kind of conversing with fans. The kid, fantastic kid. Just fits perfectly with Texas A&M. And he was doing kind of the differentiating with the fan base and what the players think and what's going on inside the locker room and with the coaching staff. We have no idea. And I see Evan Stewart, that he's pretty happy there. I see Donovan Green. I see TJ Shanahan, a lot of these recruits for 2023. Yes, Anthony Hill, good luck to him. Great kid. I hope he makes the best decision. But he's not everybody, and he's not a lot of the players in the locker room. But you're right. The play has to get significantly better, and it has to show up in these last 3 games, because there are players out there and recruits that are going to look at the play on the field, kind of place themselves inside of it and think, well, why would I come here if they're playing like this, or they're scheming it this way, or they're going to use me this way? So, it is very, very important.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And we're going to pause this pod for just a second, because you have got to try this. I'm talking about Built Bar's new reimagined flavors: cookie dough topper, coconut brownie bar, and coconut brownie topper. White chocolate peppermint granola. It's built to take on a granola bar, so it's more filling and still insanely tasty. And candy cane brownie puff. It's getting to the holiday season. Candy cane brownie puffs. Built puffs are like biting into the universe's most delicious cloud. First off, if you haven't tried Built bars before, they're literally the best tasting protein bars ever built. I've got a box in my pantry right now that is deteriorating quickly because I'm going through them so fast. They're revolutionizing nutrition as we know it. 100% real chocolate, 17 grams of protein, shockingly low sugar, and calories. Only 130 calories, in fact. Just sink your teeth into that first bite. It will change your life forever. I'm not kidding. There will be a time that you remember in your life before you tried these new Built flavors. And the magical, wonderful time afterwards, you're probably wondering which new flavors, my favorite. It's an unanswerable question, to say the least. They are all unbelievable, and they're all different. So you can order a mixed box and try all 5 new flavors for yourself. Built, you got to try this. Get 15% off your order right now by using the code LOCKEDON15 at built.com. All right, our last 2 points. We'll touch on this one quickly because we've talked about him so much. Devon Achane's second half performances over the course of the last few weeks, it leaves a lot to be desired. He has been phenomenal. And this is not a criticism of Devon in the least. He's been phenomenal. So there's been so many times this season when he's been the only thing A&M has going on offense. He leads the team in total yards and touchdowns and all these things by a wide margin. And we talked about it last segment when we talked about Haynes King and what Florida was able to do in terms of putting pressure on Haynes. And when Haynes gets under pressure, he stops using his lower body and his throwing motion, and he doesn't have the kind of arm talent to overcome not having his lower body involved. And we see the results that happen. And what winds up happening is that winds up cascading down to the running back in those sorts of situations, because you've got to have the ball for the running back to get yardage and to produce. And so he hasn't put up the same numbers. I mean, he had 19 yards on 6 carries in the second half against Florida. And that really hurt the team and their opportunity to win there in the second half and to score points. Sure.
Yeah, and then I would say that it's very odd to kind of see the regression every game. And like you said, it does fall on Haynes King a lot of the time, and it has. The last game we can think of this season in which he had a big second half was the Alabama game, because they kept passing the ball efficiently. And the offense overall was very balanced the entire game. It didn't matter the half. But we started to see that drop off later, and then it just got worse and worse. And I remember we were kind of analyzing everything throughout the week, and that was one kind of note that I didn't notice right away. I was more focused on the quarterback situation. Bad job on my part, but I remember fans were kind of calling it out. They're going, "Where's Devon? Where's Achane? Where are the runs?" And I was kind of looking back on the tape and watching, going, nothing's happening. I mean, but they're putting him in unfavorable situations where he's not in rhythm. He's not in a flow. They're not blocking well. And mostly that's because the pass isn't working. So really run the ball to set up the pass to run the ball. I mean, it just goes back and forth. And I'm telling you, I just feel bad for the kid. I love Devon Achane. He's done so much for this program. But they need to figure this out. And I think getting Connor Weigman back is going to help that. I just think it is. I think especially against an Auburn defense this week that isn't the best. They have struggled as much as A&M has. I just think if you have a balanced attack there, I think Achane is going to be determined to play better for the entire game, because I can just tell how much he cares right now, not about personal stats or NFL anything. He just wants to win. He just wants to go out there and contribute enough to help this team win. But I think it's just going to be better with Connor for all the points we've made. Just pass the ball more efficiently, get it downfield, set the defense up to where Devon can just go zone run and just beat you with his speed. And so we'll have to see that.
Yes, absolutely. So just real quick, to explain a little bit about this Devon Achane situation, we're going to walk through some of the third and fourth quarter play-by-play just real quick. They got the kickoff to start the second half. First down, Haynes King pass incomplete to Moose Muhammad. Second down, Devon Achane rush for 1 yard. So that's 2nd and 10 run. That's probably my least favorite play in football. Haynes King pass incomplete to Moose Muhammad, punt. So 3 and out on the first drive. Next possession, after the A&M defense forces a punt, or actually, no, excuse me, they go down and score a touchdown. 2 plays, 40 yards, and a touchdown in 30 seconds. So they're down 27-24 at this point. A&M gets the ball back. Achane run for 2. Achane run for 1. Haynes King incomplete due to pressure. Punt. Another 3 and out. Back-to-back 3 and outs. Then the A&M defense forces a punt. And then A&M starts moving the ball a little bit. And this is all, the first couple of passes are through the air. Pass complete to Devon Achane for no yards. Pass complete to Evan Stewart for 20 yards. 3 straight incompletions. A false start on the punt, and a punt. So they go 5 plays and out. And then Florida goes down 10 plays, 81 yards, and scores a touchdown. And now it's 34-24. And so in that period of time, from the start of the third quarter through about 8 or 9 minutes into the third quarter, you go from ahead 24-20 to behind 34-24. And all you've done is run about 8 offensive plays in that period of time. And so, like, the game is completely changed in that period of time. And then the next series, pass complete to Max Wright for 5 yards, incomplete to Evan Stewart, incomplete to Evan Stewart, delay of game, punt. Yeah. Another 3 and out. And then Tennessee gets the ball, goes down the field again, and we go into the fourth quarter. They missed the field goal attempt, and this feels like A&M's opportunity, right? This feels like the chance, right? Complete to Evan Stewart, 3 yards, complete to Muhammad for 9 yards, incomplete to Evan Stewart, 16 yards to Moose Muhammad, Achane rush for 1, Haynes complete for 10 to Evan Stewart, an 11-yard run. Okay, things start to feel like they're going. Incomplete to Devon Achane, 3-yard run. It's 3rd down and 7. Haynes King sack, fumble, recovered by Florida. Then the A&M defense comes up again, gets you another stop. We spent a whole segment talking about how this defense let this team down. And here we are talking about how many stops they've gotten in the second half to try to give this A&M offense a chance to compete. Next series, pass complete to Evan Stewart for 17, incomplete to Moose Muhammad on 1st down, sack, fumble on 2nd down, recovered by Florida, end of the drive. Then Florida goes down again, 7 plays, 20 yards, turnover on downs. Again, the defense gets another stop. A&M then at that point where, 4:26 left in the fourth quarter, and it's time to pass the ball every play because you're trying to score 2 times in 4.5 minutes to try to win a game. And so that's what it was. You wound up with your defense giving you every opportunity to have a chance to win the game. 4th down stops in the goal line situations, all those kinds of things. And the offense couldn't do it because they couldn't get any consistency, and the quarterback was under pressure, and we saw him melt. So it goes back to that conversation again, is that it all goes back, and this is why we spend so much time talking about the quarterback position and talking about Connor Weigman and why he's the hope for this program for the next few years, is because there's such a stark difference between the teams that have a quarterback and the teams that don't. The last point in your article, as we look forward to 2023, is that there's got to be changes coming, both on the coaching staff and probably on the roster, and that especially with this recruiting class coming together or failing to come together the way it has, they're going to have to use the transfer portal in 2023 in a way that they have not used it over the course of the time that Jimbo Fisher has been in College Station.
Yeah, and I mean that's something that everybody has been screaming to the rooftops for, is that you need to get veterans into this program. You cannot just rely on development. You cannot rely on it now, especially now with some of the young guys that are coming in that will stay or go, or maybe stay for a couple years or go somewhere else. I mean, you just don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. And we talked about that earlier with someone like Evan Stewart, right? I don't I'm very confident Evan Stewart isn't going anywhere, because I can kind of feel it that Evan Stewart is having a very productive season. He likes Texas A&M. He is very close with Connor Weigman. That's a connection that like helps these guys kind of see their future and kind of know, okay, well, we're losing a lot now, but the future is bright. I hate that term, the future is bright, but the future is bright in that way. But there are players on this roster that are inevitably going to leave. We know that. Look, it's going to happen. I know nobody wants to think about that, but down the line, especially in the winter, closer to signing day, later down the line, I mean, it's just inevitable. So we do all we can really focus on is, the guys on the roster now and the guys that can continue to develop with these last 3 games. But when it comes to the transfer portal, you're looking at the trenches mainly. You're looking at offensive line. You're looking at defensive line. You're looking at maybe a very valuable corner, a guy who, has had a great career in maybe a smaller program that wants to go somewhere bigger to kind of make a name for himself for the NFL. You want to get guys like that who immediately will have a sense of leadership coming in. And look, they're lacking right now, mainly because of injuries and just because of the guys who left from last season. We're talking about guys like DeMarvin Leal, even, who was one of the biggest leaders on this team. Michael Clemens, guys like that, especially defensive stalwarts for this program that are now thriving in the NFL, honestly. And they're doing very well there because of what they did here, because of those leadership qualities and their hard work and everything that makes you a valuable football player for Texas A&M. They need more of those guys, and they need those guys to win games. And that's what's lacking right now, is winning games, which is the whole central point of playing football. And so, I mean, it's frustrating, and I'm probably getting frustrated to talk about this because he has avoided the transfer portal for years. I don't know why. And yes, he dipped in for a quarterback and Max Johnson and Jaleel Johnson, I think, about a year before that. But again, that's just kind of dipping your toe in. That's just saying, well, we're missing one player, so let's go get a replacement. That's kind of, I'm not saying adopt what Lane Kiffin did with Ole Miss. They had to basically take every player they could from the transfer portal because of depletion in the program. But to be honest, look how that's working out right now. That team has 1 loss on the season. They mismatched a bunch of guys who came together and are playing really, really well. And it's a good kind of combination of veterans and young guys who are all just, I mean, that's the dream for A&M right now, because we know a bulk of these 2022 classes is going to be back next season. And if you combine that with guys who know what they're doing on the field, they may not be the most talented 5-star guys coming out, but they just know how to play. And they want to play high-end football. They want to play in the SEC. Those are the guys that this program needs. And look, I think the message is going to get through to Jimbo Fisher, because no matter what record they end up with, it's not going to be good enough, not even close. And when he says changes need to be made, I think people kind of get a dog whistle of it's just going to be coaches getting fired. That's not the changes I think he's talking about. Changes, that can mean anything right now. But really, that's the best thing they could do. And I think most of this 2023 class, look, it's gonna keep kind of shaping itself throughout the next couple months. But all I hear through either social media or interviews or anything is that, especially these O-line recruits, are dedicated to this program. They're not going anywhere. Look, Anthony Hill is one guy, and he's a high-profile player that's being courted by a lot of big programs, so I understand it. And to be honest, a guy like Bravion Rogers, who has decommitted and committed again, that's somebody who, if he took another visit, I wouldn't be surprised. Look, these guys are high profile. They get to go see universities and campuses, and we talked about this on one of the podcasts. If you have the opportunity to go see a different campus, go take advantage of it. So I mean, I don't know right now. That's the best thing I can think of, and I think if we're talking about 2023 seriously, that is the quickest fix you can have. So, and the quickest fix you can make overall.
Absolutely. Guys, thanks so much for joining us today. Cameron, thanks for being a part of the show. You can follow Cameron online on Twitter at Cameron Ohnysty. Last name is Ohnysty. You can follow the show at Locked On Aggies. You can find the show at Locked On Aggies on YouTube as well. Please subscribe, leave a comment, the kinds of changes that you think A&M needs to make going into 2023. Now that you've made Locked On Aggies your first listen, go check out Locked On Sports Today, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. That's Locked On Sports Today, and we will see you tomorrow.